the We Wreck Records podcast.
The record was an open-hearted record.
Right.
You know, Puzzle was very dark and grief-stricken, and this one was like coming out where I just felt liberated. I wanted to make songs that were like, for the first time, kind of universal. I remember the chorus came to me as I was leaving the toilet in my house. Thankfully, I wasn't sitting on the toilet because that kind of kills the romance. But I remember just having this, there's a girl, and she's down by the river. And I was so excited, I texted the boys straight away,
Wow.
we need to get into rehearsal. You know that way at a gig, you can sometimes, you're singing a song and you catch eyes with a stranger that's singing the same song. And that magic, that chemical connection, you know,
Yeah.
It's beautiful. So I appreciate you saying that. The album's an absolute fucking belter.
How's it going? This is Chris Enriquez from New Noise Magazine. You are watching and or listening to We Wreck Records podcast. I'm sitting here with Simon Neal of Biffy Clyro. How are you, sir?
I'm great, Chris. It's lovely to see you this morning.
This show is proudly presented by DistroKid, and we have a special deal for all the musicians out there looking to release their new music fast. DistroKid helps over 2 million musicians around the world release on all major music streaming platforms and YouTube. You keep 100% of your earnings, can access a huge range of features, and if you like this show, support this show by taking advantage of this incredible offer, 30% off your first year with DistroKid. Just head to distrokid.com/VIP/WeWreckRecords. This show is presented by Grillo's Pickles. Grillo's Pickles make the freshest, crunchiest, most delicious pickles. And even if you're not a pickle fan, you should try Grillo's today. Why not? Live a little. You can find them in the refrigerated section of your local grocery store. So chill out and eat a pickle.
You had quite a vast, discography, and then there was that moment when, boom, you start having hit singles left and right.
Yeah.
So obviously, I'm talking about Only Revolutions right now.
Yeah, that was a bit of a turning point, for the band, I guess.
I guess. Well, I also know that you have new stuff coming out, so we're going to get into that, and for that reason, I'm appreciative that you're willing to go back in time with me for
It's a pleasure,
this journey.
man.
So I want to talk about that record. We are talking about records that changed people's careers. So Shape of Punk to Come for Refused, Bleed American for Jimmy Eat World.
Yeah, of course.
Arguably, Only Revolutions is sort of that for Biffy Clyro. I don't know if you would agree, but can you take me back to who you were at that moment in time in your life?
Sure.
What was going on in your life in 2008, and where were you at personally, professionally? Like, help us sort of understand and get a picture of what your life was like at that time.
Sure. So, well, Only Revolutions came out in 2009, so I was probably writing it in 2007, 2008 with myself and the boys. But the record before Only Revolutions was our first major label record, so it was our first kind of taste of being at the big boys' table, for want of a better phrase, to tour much more around the world rather than just UK and Europe. So we finally felt the opportunities that were available to the band, but that record was about my mum passing away, and it was a really a time of mixed emotions, because first album in Warner's, but it was about the saddest period of my life. So that couple of years of touring that record left me in an imbalanced place.
Right.
So I wasn't sure quite where to go next. I was always writing songs, but I didn't quite have the spine of the next record. And then I got married to my wife, and I realized I wanted to kind of focus on the positive side of being in that relationship.
Yeah.
And the things we'd learned about each other over the years. And I think that was a reaction to the kind of grief that was so
Absolutely.
suppressed, or not suppressed, it was like throughout Puzzle. So I wanted to do something that was a bit more forward looking and a bit more, as I say, positive,
Sure, yeah.
And so the title of the record came from a book I was reading at that point, which by an author called Mark Danielewski, who's one of my favorite authors. And it's a really outre book. It's quite hard to get your head around, but it's a beautiful piece of work. It's a massive poem. And if you can read it one way, you basically have to read every 8 pages, and then you need to turn the book upside down, so you're getting two people's perspective of the same story. Honestly, it's one of my favorite books. It's a trip. It's a trip, man.
It sounds like it. Yeah.
and I loved the fact that it was representing a boy and a girl's kind of road trip story, but from each of their perspectives, and that was what kind of inspired the initial thoughts of Only Revolutions, and about me singing about my relationship with my wife, but also
Right.
how she views me. And so it was very inspiring in terms of the concept of the album.
Wow, I did not know. Like, I knew about the book, but I didn't know necessarily, about how you lost your mother and you ended up getting married. That is quite a journey to be
It was
experiencing.
a wild few years.
Yeah, and it led you to make this like epic, beautiful. And it's funny you say positive, and I feel that in the record. It's hopeful.
Yeah.
Oftentimes a lot of records that um, a lot of pain and darkness, a lot of like records that we all refer to in our lives. Your view and sort of hopefulness and positivity definitely is very prevalent, and I think that's what makes that record very special.
Yeah, thank you. I think
Yeah,
even in the melodies
yeah,
and things,
yeah,
and almost the ambition of it, from making Puzzle and during a tough time, and playing more and more shows, and kind of playing further around the world. I think my ambition kind of matched the music I was making at that point, and
right.
and as we've just been discussing before, we love a lot of the same bands. I could sit and interview you about your work over the years and what you're up to just now, but there was something about that record where I just felt liberated. I wanted to make songs that were like, for the first time, kind of universal. And I know that's a bit
Yes.
not necessarily the coolest thing to say, but that's what I felt. I felt like I'd been through the loss of my mum. I felt like I'd learned a lot
Yeah.
as a young man, and I wanted to impart that into my music. And I think that meant the record was an open-hearted record.
Right.
Puzzle was very dark and grief-stricken and quite a lonely record,
Right.
and this one was like coming out of the shadows.
Actually, yeah, the early Biffy catalog leading up to Puzzles into Revolution arguably is darker, heavier, a little bit more on the aggressive side. And
Yeah.
then now we're seeing this like hopeful, positive side. I was going to talk about Puzzles, but prior to Only Revolutions, when you did Puzzles, you started working with Garth Richardson. Obviously, like we all know his work with the Chili Peppers and Rage
Yeah.
and Melvins and
Jesus
lots of
Lizard.
L7. Yeah, so that's an interesting sort of change for what you guys were doing before, and with the success of Puzzles. Would you say that had something to do with you guys going into more of a pop direction with him
Yeah.
behind the board?
I think so. When the first record we did with Garth was
Yeah.
Puzzle, and we spent 4 months up in Vancouver, and it was actually a place called Gibson's, this isolated island that you couldn't leave after 7 p.m. because the boat stopped. So it was like being in some kind of weird horror movie. But we really learned how to make a record, because before that, our first 3 albums, we would just do them live. Basically, it would take 2 or 3 weeks to make a record. So
Yeah,
when we went in with Garth, I had no idea how you spent 4 months making a record. I'm like,
right,
what
right.
do you do for 4 months? Because we can play the songs, we know what they are. So we learned about how to use the studio to our advantage. He kept saying to us, like, you're not just documenting your live show here. We have different opportunities in the studio with the tricks we can pull and everything. So the first album with Garth was feeling each other out. It's kind of
Right.
like a first date.
Yes.
Although a very intense first date that lasts 4 months, and there's
Yeah.
too much fondling. But so we learned each other, and then when we came in for Only Revolutions, we knew each other so well. So that trust was really deep rooted, and it just made we started quick. We recorded the record, and we did Puzzle in Vancouver, but then we went down to Ocean Way Studios
Yeah.
in Los Angeles to do it. Now, Ocean Way has recorded some of the biggest artists in the world, like Sinatra, Beach Boys, Guns N'
Jesus
Roses,
Christ.
Fleetwood Mac, so many artists. And to be in that studio with Garth, it made us want to make a record that was in the same ballpark as,
Right.
like, Rumors, and don't get me wrong, I'm not comparing our music to those
Well, I
classic
think
records.
honestly, like what you guys do has more of a commonality with those types of bands, which is why, meaning like those beautiful songs on Dreams by Fleetwood Mac and on Rumors, but like it's a testament to sort of like how you guys separated yourself from the pack. I think that you went on more of like a melodic sort of thing that took you on this journey, which, Puzzles arguably was the beginning of that.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask you, like, did you feel pressure because Puzzles at that point was the biggest thing you had done? Now we have to follow that up. Or did you feel like it was just organic how you approached Only Revolutions?
It was organic.
Okay.
I think whenever I've felt any pressure between records, I just take a break. Like
Yeah.
that's why I went back then. I went and worked with another band called Marmaduke Duke, and that was, we all dressed up in masks and things, and that was kind of like disco hardcore. It was weird music. You
I
should
love
check
it.
us out.
Yeah, this is before Empire State Bastard,
Yeah,
which everyone should check
exactly.
out.
So, but I needed to go and do something else to take that
Mhm.
pressure off, because when you're on a major label, when your band starts to get successful, it's really easy to forget what being in a band is and
Right.
what music is.
Yeah.
And the reason that I get into playing music as a 12-year-old, why me and Ben and James started
Yeah.
playing music when we were 13, it's because we just wanted to have fun together and make a racket. So whenever it becomes too much of like career type stuff,
Right.
then I need to go away. So I released 2 records with my other band Marmaduke Duke between Puzzle and Only Revolutions, and that liberated
Wow.
me to basically just write whatever came. And for every album, I just write music. So it's very often we'll have 30 songs to pick from.
I see. Yeah.
So I never put too much pressure on one individual song. I just let the juices
Let it all
flow,
out.
let
and
it all
then,
out.
Yeah.
And some of them are great, some aren't.
Right.
But you pick your favorites. But the pressure is my fear. That's my fear. And even now on our 10th record, like I just I never want to feel like, oh, it's time to make a record. It needs to be this, or it
Or like,
needs
what's
to be.
my new hit single gonna be?
Yeah, like that's the
Yeah.
death of creativity, and
Yeah, yeah.
that's all my favorite bands have never ascribed to that. And we've kind of, because we are a mainstream band, but I
Yes.
like, as we discussed earlier, our roots are in like indie, DIY, hardcore,
Punk rock,
punk
hardcore,
rock, and
metal.
so
Yeah.
that's still where we take our inspiration. And I want to cherish my art the way these healthy scenes do. I
Yeah.
don't just want to be chasing a hit or a radio, because then you turn into fucking Maroon 5.
Oh,
You know what I
gosh,
mean?
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or they're an easy target, unfortunately. but I mean, there's a lot of bands that I've loved over the years that you just see slip out of your grasp, and you're like, no, come
Yeah,
back.
right.
You know,
I mean, you've always maintained, to me as a spectator, a healthy sort of appreciation for your success and the way that you've conducted yourself, and like just sort of like not done the rock star cliche thing where you kind of fall off and you kind of throw it all away or do some self-destructive stuff. You seem like you have a healthy perspective on how you
yeah.
go about your.
It's because I always try and remember what like my 16-year-old self would want to do, and
Yeah.
why I started this. Myself, Ben, and James have been friends from when we were 7 years old, and we started the band when we were like 13. So that really helps keep us tight, and
Yeah.
that helps whenever like band stuff becomes complicated or there's politics or things like that. We just strip it back to having a
Right,
conversation.
the fundamental of like the three of you guys as kids.
Yeah, has never changed. And we
Yeah,
still practice. I still write songs in my small town in Scotland. That's where all my songs are written. We still rehearse in the
Right.
middle of nowhere. And, because for over the years we've talked about moving to London or New York or something. And actually, I think we would lose a little bit of magic. There's something in
it's an ingredient.
Yeah, it's
It's
an
an
ingredient
essential
that I
ingredient.
can't neglect. For
Yeah.
years, I was like, oh, I want to go here. I want to go to the Bahamas and write the next record. And it's like,
Yeah.
that wouldn't be a Biffy record. You know?
No, I don't want to get too far off topic from Only Revolutions, but I will mention that a good mutual friend of ours told me that he got to watch you guys write your first record in improv, almost like for an hour and a half. He said he was watching you guys improv, and it was life changing. And that's
that's Artie.
Yeah.
We're lucky
Yeah.
to tour a lot with Artie Shape. Love you, Artie.
Well, so let's get back to Only Revolutions, because I really don't want to
Okay,
lose
sorry,
sight of that. No, please don't ever apologize. I was gonna say, you put the album on, and the elements of a successful record are just in front of you right off the bat. Like the Captain hits you immediately. It's powerful. There's a freaking like just badass riff followed by a hook and a melody. Like it's a massive production. And then you had David Campbell handle the strings and horns, which of course he worked with, Michael Jackson, Metallica, the Stones, Beyonce, Can you talk about like bringing someone like that in? I mean, at this point, like you said, you're on your 10th record, but we're talking about like this is like sort of the middle of your career. I mean, it's your fifth album, so it's not like you're just getting started out, but
Yeah,
like
but
things are changing.
yeah, things are
Yeah.
changing a lot, and that was a big step. See, we'd worked with a wonderful New Zealand composer called Graham Revell in Puzzle, and he did a great job. But then to Oscar-winning David
Yeah,
Campbell,
sure. Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
that's a different conversation, and we were absolutely mind blown that he was attracted to these songs because, as you say, he's worked with some of the biggest artists in the
In the
world
world
over
ever.
the decades, and he heard something in our music, and we then went on to actually to collaborate with him on another record after that
Yeah.
as well. But he brought certain things to the songs, like there's a song called "Know Your Quarry," which is
Right,
one of the
right.
tunes later, and I wasn't quite sure how that song was sitting in the album. And then he brought in these string players to do these little
Oh, that's
pizzicato
insane.
sections, and it just created this new song. And when you're collaborating with anyone, you just want them to bring a slightly different flavor that kind of gives your music even wider wings and makes
It's
it fly.
crazy. Yeah, it's like it's already powerful stuff that you're working with, like the sort of foundation, and then these strings and things that he brings in there, the horns. They kind of like bring it to an. It's almost like it brings a 3D element to it. We're
Exactly.
like, whoa, like it's like this is before like people were talking about Atmos and all that stuff. And I was gonna say, like, as the album progresses, I mean, let's talk about the fact. First of all, there's 6 hit singles on this record, so there's 12 songs, and half the album are
It's
singles.
like
So that's
Thriller.
that's
Thriller
why we're
also.
talking. But like Bubbles, when that comes on, it's immediately you're like, this is the hit. Like without, it's like the first time you heard like "Smells Like Teen Spirit," or the first time you heard any like
You
classic.
flatter me, man.
I'm just
Thank you.
saying. I mean,
Flatter me,
like
but thank you.
it's that's the hit as right away. And like I wanted to ask you if that was obvious to you when you wrote that song. I mean, you kind of talked about how you do like 30 songs and you pick and choose, but like when you heard that and you finished it, like during the creation, after it was done, wherever you want to take the answer, like was it clear to you, like, wow, this is a hit, or this is
You,
a standout?
you know what? I'm not sure if I thought about it during the recording session, but I remember writing. I remember the chorus came to me as I was leaving the toilet in my house. Thankfully, I wasn't sitting on the toilet because that kind of kills the romance. But I remember just having this: "There's a girl, there's a girl, there's a girl, there's a girl, and she's down by the river," and that just came to me, and I was so excited. I texted the boys straight away, going, "We
Wow,
need to get into rehearsal.
I need to do
Like
this
like
now.
this. I think I've got a brilliant fucking idea."
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so that was the excitement for me, was that moment. See when I share my ideas with the boys and we then bring them to life in our practice room,
Right.
that is like, that's when I feel like I'm
Taking
speaking to
something from
God.
your head and you take something from nothing into this, like,
Exactly.
yeah,
I'm not a religious person, but that's the moments where I think there is a God. I'm like,
right.
something magic's
Like if you
happening.
didn't call them that second, I mean, I would imagine this song was probably like a lot of people's wedding songs, or who knows, maybe it
Yeah.
was played at someone's funeral. Not to get dark, but like these are songs that end up being part of people's lives in like ways that you can't even imagine. And if you didn't make that phone call,
Then it might not have happened. I
yeah,
know, and that's
yeah,
the beautiful thing, is in retrospect, to see what these songs mean to people and how they've been a part of everyone's
yeah,
lives, because I have no control over that.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
make the music you want to make, and you hope that there's, if you don't sign to Warner's Records if you don't want people to hear your music.
Exactly,
So
exactly.
to just know how those songs, and they're still with us now, we still play a lot of those songs live, but yeah, Bubbles, it was the outro of Bubbles that I was so excited about. See to get like a, because that's almost like it's like a 5 minute almost prog rock
Oh,
song. It's got
totally.
every aspect of our band, I think, and
Yeah.
and that's what I think we really captured on Only Revolutions, was really capturing each aspect. The emotional side, the fragile side, the aggressive side, and also the progressive and kind of more off kilter stuff. Because
Yeah.
to me, that's kind of what makes our band special. Is that
Absolutely, the progressive aspect of your band is, especially in the earlier material, is very prevalent. And then as you sort of like get to this part of your career, you're introducing it in a different way, like in a melodic way, as opposed to a
yes.
heavy way.
Yeah, almost like, because when we first were doing that, it was like, stay away. We were quite an insular band. Even when we
Yeah,
played, we would face each other. We used to set our microphone stands up facing each
I
other,
see. Yeah,
just
yeah.
as a 3 piece, and we would just ignore the crowd. And then after a few years, we're like, we should probably pay attention to the crowd. So,
right,
you know,
like
like,
we're here
so,
for you, for them. You
yeah,
know?
so
Yeah,
it
yeah.
felt like we were opening up as human beings and as young men. You know, I mean, we're all young men are angry, and you know, it's just the nature of who you
Yeah.
are. You grow up and you're
Let's start a rock and roll band.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's why you do it. So it was really. I think losing my mum was what made me want to communicate with the world and be part of the world with my
Right.
music rather than just keep it kind of insular and for my friends and for people I trusted. You
Something
know,
beautiful came out of this tragic
yeah,
situation.
and it was, and to be honest, not to sound dramatic, it saved me. Those records saved me. And Only Revolutions, I remember, I was we were on our honeymoon actually after we get married in Mexico,
Yeah.
and I remember reading the Only Revolutions book and having all the songs in my mind. I knew which 15 songs we were going to record. I didn't know
Yes.
which 12 were going to make the record, but I remember just being very settled compared to the previous record where I was all over the place. And I just knew which songs. And I remember saying the song "Many of Horror," and
I was just about to talk about that.
I've
Yeah.
never said this to him, but our tour manager was out with us, and I remember saying to him, "This could be the best song I ever
So
write."
you did know when you,
I
yeah,
knew that, and when we
yeah.
recorded it, every time we would do a bit more of the recording, I was like, "This is special," and it felt like it didn't belong to me even at that
I mean, if
point.
you feel like that and you're already, sort of experiencing the success at this point, I mean, it's if you feel that way and it's connecting to you, it's going to connect with
Well, I mean,
everyone
that's
else
what you
because you're
hope.
your biggest critic. You know what I mean?
Always, and you know that as
Always,
well,
yeah,
don't you,
yeah,
Chris? It's I mean, you've got to be your own biggest critic, but yeah,
yeah,
it's the only time in my life where I've thought this song deserves to be heard. You know,
yeah,
like I was like, this is a song for everybody. It wasn't just a song for rock fans or
yeah.
or people that followed our band. It was like I just felt like I felt like it was an old timer, and I hope I don't
Yeah.
sound like arrogant
No,
at
I
saying
actually
it.
want to talk about that right now because it ended up being the biggest single from the album. It's up on the Transformers soundtrack, and we have to mention the finalist on X Factor,
Yeah.
who ended up winning because of his rendition of that song. So, thanks for like jumping ahead and getting into that. Now we got to talk about Mountains too, though, which
Of
is the
course.
highest charting single for you guys in many countries,
Yes.
in your own country, and if we were here all day dissecting every hit single, would be here all day. But
You're kidding.
if you could just sort of give a background though on that song "Mountains,"
Of,
since we already went through Bubbles and
of course,
and
of
Many of
course.
Four, I think we got to talk about that. Like, so take us on that journey
So
because it
Mountains
became massive.
Mountains was one of the first songs I wrote for Only Revolutions, and actually we played it in a sound check. We were supporting a band called Block Party in Sweden,
Yeah,
and we played it at a sound check in Sweden, and there was someone from the record company there, and they just said, "You have to like this is going to be this is going to be a big song," and I was just jamming it in sound check. We
yeah.
hadn't played it much. It was just like, here's a new song.
You guys did that a lot during sound checks.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
we were just saying, you would jam and write an improv at sound check, and that's how a
Absolutely
lot.
feel
Yeah,
things out because you know what it's like yourself, Chris. It's sometimes you feel loose in sound check and everything sounds great when you're up there, and it's
right.
just like you can just. It's nice to be adventurous. You've got to always keep trying as well. Keep making music. Try every idea you have.
Yeah.
Try things in the morning. Try things at night. Exactly. Exactly.
Welcome to New York.
Yeah. Exactly. I know. I mean, there's no other place I could be. But so we did that in sound check, and then we ended up going into Sunset Sound Studios
Yeah,
just to
the
record it
legendary.
as a
Yeah,
one-off single, where the Stones did, I think some Beggars Banquet and things, or Exile on Main Street,
yeah.
and actually where the Dixie Chicks did one of their records. That was very exciting. I
Big
love
thing
it,
for
love
you.
the Dixie
Yeah,
Chicks. Yeah, and we just cut this song, and we spent a couple of days just cutting Mountains, and then the label were like, let's put it out straight away. So it was one of the only time in our lives where we put out like a standalone single. But even in that song, we managed to get a sitar on that song. There's a sitar on it, so it's even at our most meatloaf type moment,
right,
that
right, right.
we were like, let's put something weird, and
That
actually,
was your sort of the Beatles went there, Zeppelin had their
exactly.
sitar.
And actually, we
Yeah,
did a practical joke to our A&R man. We did the first time he heard the song. I put the sitar doubling the vocal through the whole
yeah,
song, so
yeah,
it was like
yeah.
down, 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 down. And he came in and he was like, "Really?" And we are like, "No, we're only joking, man."
Well, it worked. It worked. I just, so we're running out of time. I know you got a lot of stuff, so I'm going to jump ahead
Of
because,
course.
we did cover like a lot of, the biggest singles that came out of that record, and that was your fifth record. Now you're on your 10th record, and Futique is coming out on September 19th. what can fans expect? And why don't you let us know what's happening with any tours or shows that you're allowed to share, so that people
Sure.
out there can get their tickets and
Yeah,
make
thanks
sure.
for that.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll be back to play some shows hopefully in December and the East Coast and all that. We're
Nice.
just getting that booked just now. Trust us, it's going to happen. And then we're doing a big full tour next spring where we'll do all of the states. So you'll hopefully have plenty of opportunities to see us. The new album is called Futique.
Yep.
It's like a combination of the words future antique, and it's kind of a reflection on our journey as a band, my relationship with the boys, and my relationship even to our memories. And I just feel that we're living in such a weird time in the world that I just want to try and cherish little moments of happiness that are happening, because sometimes you only realize
we need it. Yeah,
the good times once they're past. And I really want to be as present as possible in this time period. And so Futique is my take on that, and it's got every aspect of Biffy you'd want. I wrote a bunch of songs on piano, so there's a few kind of longer songs that are like some of the prettiest things I've ever written. And after spending 2 years touring with Empire State Bastard, or my metal band,
with Dave Lombardo on drums from Slayer,
and Mike and Naomi. So I went away with that, had a great time. We toured for about 18 months. And actually, when I came home, all this melody just fell out of my head. So I would sit at the piano.
kind of like back in the day when you were making
exactly
Only
that when I did
Revolutions.
the Marmaduke.
Very similar situation.
And so that's how I kind of battle the pressure in my brain. And I
Mhm.
want music needs to be innocent and not cynical. I don't want to make cynical music. And but just to go back to Only Revolutions, if that's okay,
Please.
the cover. We were lucky enough to work with an artist called Storm Thorgerson, who did
Yes.
all the Pink Floyd artwork and everything. We worked in 3 albums with Storm, and he passed away about 10 years ago now.
wow.
But he was such an incredible part of that record too. He wanted to hear all the demos. He wanted to talk through all the lyrics with me.
And make sure the art reflected.
And that was the era where I realized that art, I mean, obviously this sounds odd, but the first thing you see for the record is the art. It's the first conversation you have.
Of course,
it's the first
the aesthetic is such a big part of everything that we connect with.
Absolutely, isn't it?
Yeah.
And even more so these days. So yes, I just wanted to mention Storm, because God rest his
Yeah.
soul. He's an incredible artist. And
I'm glad you brought it there, because I know we're running out of time, but I was going to bring that up. So you touched on that. I wanted to say, on the new record, A Little Love just came out, and Hunting Season. Those songs are unbelievable. I mean,
thanks.
You're still churning out the hits.
Well,
man.
You're gonna like the rest of the record if you're into those two.
Like I said, I think we need music like this right now, because the world is such a dark place. Angry music's great, but we also need some hope. So this is awesome.
This record's for people to put your arm around your friends or your family and just sing along together. Some of the most beautiful times in my life have been watching a show. And that way you're singing with your buddies and you're sharing these memories. And
or sitting in a pub and like something comes on, or you put on the jukebox.
And even strangers, that way at a gig, you can sometimes, you're singing a song and you catch eyes with a stranger that's singing the same song. And that magic, that chemical connection, it's beautiful. So I appreciate you saying that. The album's an absolute fucking belter.
Hell yeah. And then there's a tour coming up in Europe. It was just announced The Armed is on that, and tickets are on sale. And, we're going to be at your shows here when you get to the States.
Oh,
and,
I appreciate it. I'll let you know as soon as they're booked. Yeah. They're going to be booked soon. But really appreciate your time, Chris.
Thank you so much for taking this journey with us. I'm really excited that you're still out there, and I know that the fans are too. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this little trip down memory lane. I'm sure this record meant a lot to you if you're watching this right now.
Thanks so much.
Thank
Chris.
You so much.
An absolute pleasure, my brother.
Yeah, absolutely.